duty to protect the citizens. We need to have some kind of standards that are met within our state.
The feds are cleaning up the waste left behind from manufacturing nuclear weapons, but tonight the state of Missouri wants to serve as watchdog, making sure the government is holding up its end of the deal. This is First Alert 4 at 6. I'm Samantha Jones.
And I'm Corey Stark. A State House committee held its first meeting today to get answers on radioactive contamination lingering in St. Louis. Our Russell Kinsall heard that testimony revealing the feds aren't always doing what they're supposed to do. Russell?
That's exactly right. State environmental workers testified some federal agencies aren't always meeting their obligations. So for decades, the radioactive waste problem has been left up to the feds. But this new committee, made up of local area lawmakers, think it's time the state did a better job of holding the feds accountable.
And I'm just going to ask the several questions.
The new State House committee had a lot of questions about radioactive contamination during their first meeting held Tuesday.
Does the Corps think that they've identified all the sites and their extent?
We do believe we have identified all of the sites and areas that do have contamination.
The committee heard testimony that there hasn't been a cooperative agreement between the state and U.S. Army Corps of Engineers since 2018, and that in some instances, the feds have not fulfilled their cleanup and monitoring obligations.
We had at one point funding to be the watchdog of the federal government and how they behaved, but the federal government took that away, and they took it away quietly.
New legislation could come out of the committee's work.
So do we need further statutory authority from the state of Missouri in order to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect Missourians?
One potential new law would require disclosure if a property ever tests positive for radioactive waste.
So we want to make sure that that information is trickling down to the renter, and also would provide them protections to break lease should they find out after the fact that contamination was known on their property.
At times, the frustration with the extent of the contamination and the slow cleanup spilled over.
We know that Ninja Turtles are running around in 73rd District because of all the toxic waste.
One conclusion to already come out of the committee's first meeting: the state needs to keep a close watch over the work of federal agencies.
And if the federal government's behaving badly, we need to provide our agencies with a statutory framework in order to call them in or call them to question.
So in testimony this afternoon, the state health department's chief medical officer said every primary care physician should take into account whether a patient lives near any of the 11 radioactive cleanup sites across the state of Missouri. The committee has not decided if or when they might hold a second hearing. Russell Kinsall, First Alert 4.
I'll keep an eye on that, Russell. Thank you. Taking